So, Hazel Baker, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You are head of user-generated content news gathering
That's
at
correct.
Reuters.
Yep.
So I think so it's more or less you get a lot of user-generated video, I suppose, from news events from all around the world. So please describe what kind of content do you deal with?
Of course. Let me start by saying for any major news event, most of the material that we put out on Reuters video services is material filmed by a Reuters journalist or from one of our partner journalists. But we know that for many types of news events, the first cameras at the scene aren't going to be professional ones. Sometimes it's a natural disaster, an incident, an accident, an attack. People pull out their smartphones and start filming. We can't ignore that material. It's really important to tell a story. It's high impact, and actually it can often capture the drama of the event. As well as that, it can add different voices, a different layer of context, and also can provide really raw emotion. So it's very, very important to our clients. And for that reason, we know that we've got to dedicate time and resource into finding this content, verifying it, and then getting the rights to distribute it to all our clients around the world, which are hundreds of clients.
Okay, and how do you find it?
So that's a good question. One of the things that we really have in our armour is lots of pairs of eyes. So Reuters has got 2,500 journalists worldwide who are constantly looking for stories that are happening, looking at their own social media, following their own sources, looking at their own contacts, and they'll very often tip us off to a story. So there's a lot of human tips that come in. Beyond that, we run a series of monitoring on social media. So we use TweetDeck. We've got tons of columns running all the time, looking for keywords, looking for interesting things that are happening. We also try to look at what's coming up in the day. So we look at the diary and we think about which kind of stories are going to have a user-generated content angle to them, and what can we do to make sure we're in a good position to find that. And then we use tools like CrowdTangle, which is a free Facebook tool which surfaces some of the trending content on social media, and that can help us spot things which are rising up and worth following up.
Okay, so let's say, I don't know, take a news event. I don't know, Syria, a war zone. Only a few journalists are on the ground. Obviously a very important story, but yeah, how do you find out whether this video is really shot at that time in that location, etc.? How do you verify the legibility of this video?
So I'm going to talk about Syria, but then I'll talk about some of the other news events. So
Syria
is an interesting case because obviously it's been a long-running conflict.
Yeah.
And over that time, we built up our sources, built up our contacts, and built trust with them. And we watch over time what they upload, and are they consistent? Are they consistently from a location? Are they consistent from the type of material they're uploading? And we understand the motivation and where they are within the context of the war.
So even if they're not working for Reuters, but like persons or personalities on Twitter, on those social media networks that regularly upload stuff, and you kind of got to know them a little bit.
That's very true. It's more activist groups, if we're honest. That tends to be the more likely than individuals. Yeah. But that's not typical. So typically, the main stories that we cover are spot news events. They're unplanned. They're not long running. They're often over quite quickly.
The burning plane in Moscow.
The burning plane in Moscow is a really good example to talk about. So for anyone who didn't follow this story watching that, a plane landed after reporting an error, a problem on board, landed at Moscow Sheremetyevo airport and set on fire. And lots of people were watching from the airport lounge. They were waiting to catch flights, or they were on the tarmac at the airport, and they filmed it on their mobile phones. And of course, there was no professional camera there at the time because there was no reason to have one there. As a result, that is so important to get that footage and to make sure we obtain it and put it out to our clients so they can tell the story of what happened. So how do we go about that? Well, the first thing is to run some good searches. We always try and find the original content. So we see lots of things like scrapes, which is not the original content. It's a copy, which is shared online. So lots of content is scraped and reshared, and that doesn't help us greatly. We've got to speak to the person who filmed it because they're the people that can tell us exactly when, where, what happened, and give us the context as well. They can also give us the rights to use it. So that was probably the biggest challenge for the airport.
But you did find the guy or the woman who filmed it first?
Well, there were lots of different videos, and we definitely found, I think, about 6 people who were filming at that event and used their material, having spoken to them at depth. So what we're trying to do...
by phone or by text?
Some by phone, some by text, some by WhatsApp. It depends what we have to get whether people are actually communicating, and everyone's in a different situation. Sometimes on the day of it happening, people are quite shaken and find it quite hard to talk to you, and understandably. So we need to be quite considerate of that. So we run lots of searches. We have to make sure we use not just the local language, but other languages, because it's an international airport. There are people from all around the world. So we have to run lots of searches. Then when we find video, and we think it might, we look back to see if we can find earlier examples. Once we think we've got the earliest example, we try and speak to that user and say, you know, where were you? Why were you filming? What, were you waiting for a flight? Try and get all that information from that user, all those details which help us build up a full picture of whether that user is legitimate. And once we've got all that information, we can start to look at the video itself. Is it consistent with other video that we have from that location? Can we check that it matches the other scenes that we have? Can we see the same planes in shot, the same buildings in shot? Are we sure it's definitely from this airport on this day? We can reverse search keyframes. So keyframes of the video, we can check back using Google Image reverse search. Have we seen any of this video before? So all that needs to be done. And then once we've got to the point that we're happy it's authentic, then we can start asking the user for rights to use the video.
All right, and how long does it take? I mean,
how long is a piece of string? So some of the video is really quick to verify, because something like the burning plane, we had, I don't know, 7 or 8 different pieces of video showing the same scene very soon after. And you can see the same planes in shot, you can see the same gate numbers in shot, and you can also compare it to pictures that we have of the airport. So that was quite easy to verify, but some things are much harder, particularly if there's only one piece of video showing the scene. That's when it's really challenging.
Okay.
So it's a really a factor that depends on so many things. Also, how willing the people are to speak to us. If we get people on the phone very quickly, they can answer our questions. Sometimes we leave them a message, and 3 weeks later they get back to say, "Oh yeah, you can use our video." 3 weeks on, it's not quite so important.
And what was the hardest video you've been working on to verify?
The hardest video to verify. Okay, I've got a good example. There was another aeroplane. Something about plane videos do tend to capture people's imagination. There was an aeroplane that landed at Gibraltar Airport. It was in February, and there was a video circulating online showing this plane doing crazy wing waggling, and it looked like it was about to flip over. I mean, it was a crazy piece of video, and when we first saw it, we couldn't quite believe it. We've trained ourselves to know if something looks too good to be true, it probably is, and this definitely fell into that category. We had some doubts about this video, but we did look at the reports, and we spoke to BA. It was a BA plane that we could see, and British Airways, sorry, and they confirmed there had been an emergency go-around. And then we looked at the other information we had that we could see in the video. We could see the landmarks of Gibraltar. We could look at the plane map on planefinder.net. And we could also start to see tweets from Gibraltar from people who'd seen this plane do this crazy wing waggling and had to tweet about it because it was insane. So we started to build up a picture and a bit of body of evidence that actually this video was it actually authentic. So the next step was to speak to the person who filmed it. And fortunately, he was really cooperative. And the very important thing he did was send us the original file. He filmed it on an iPhone. He sent us the file, and it came complete with metadata. The location data was there, the date and the timestamp were all on there. Now, you can change that data, but can you change it that quickly and create a convincing fake that quickly that tallies with what other people were seeing online? No, I don't think so. So
the last question I want to ask you is, I mean, we've not all seen, but we all heard about the horrible events in Christchurch, for example, where a mass murderer basically live streamed his mass murder. And the question is, how do you deal with these pictures as a news agency? Obviously, it's a news event, but people are shot, people are dying, and the whole mass murder was designed for journalists and mass media organizations to pick it up and broaden his message and make him an icon of right-wing terrorists. So how do you deal with these kind of pictures?
So the very first thing we do is try to preserve the evidence, in this case recording what we could see before we know it was going to be removed. And actually the reason we do that, it helps us for lots of reasons. It helps us report on what's happening in the story, but also if we come back and we need to verify something, at least we have this source material. So that's step number one. Step number two is to verify what we could see, and we were able to do that by looking at pictures that the shooter had posted of guns, weapons on his Twitter account, which we could see in the boot of the car. We could also see another car in shot, which appears in a later eyewitness video. So we were able to establish it was authentic. At that point, it's a really difficult editorial decision. How much do we put out there? Our clients from all around the world want to tell this story. Do we give them this material that we have? It's not an easy call. In that case, we decided that some parts of it we could, and it had a valid reason to be run. We didn't show any of the moments of death at all, none of the shooting, but we did show some of the moments that the shooter walks into the building. We felt because it helped tell the world what had happened. And of course, it is down to the ultimate broadcasters of the content, what they do with that and how they follow their own editorial policies. Reuters is a supplier of content to lots of news channels worldwide, and we always think about our responsibility, but not everybody will approach the content in the same way.
But did you publish it yourself on Reuters.com?
Well, I work for the agency, and we put out some sections of this video, not the shooting, which showed the first part where we could see the shooter walking into the mosque.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
I know you have to run for the next session.
Much appreciated.
Thanks so much
Thanks.
for coming. You can watch this video and other videos at dctp.tv or on youtube.com/dctp. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned. Bye.